This program airs statewide on California Public Television and is a California's Gold classic. Hi, I'm Huell, and on this rather overcast morning, we're on the Catalina Express on our way to the island of Catalina, which is one of our state's channel islands located 26 miles across the sea off the Southern California coast. Now, we're on our way to Catalina to do a story about something that's very historic that's up in the sky. And when we get through doing that, we're going to head over to the Mojave Desert once again to do a story about something very historic in the sky. In fact, we call this whole adventure Historic Things That Glide Through the Sky. So if you're in kind of a lighthearted mood, come on along with us as we continue our search together, this time in the sky, for California's gold.
California, here I come, right back where I started from, where bowers of flowers bloom in the sun. Each morning at dawning, a little birdie sings and everything.
Well, on our way over, we had some unexpected visitors. A school of dolphin following alongside the ferry boat. And then, a few minutes later, we pulled into the beautiful little harbor at Avalon. It was there I met up with Patricia, who's the curator of the Catalina Island Museum. She walked me over to the museum, which is located on the lower level of the famous Catalina Island Casino, which was built in the late 20s and is still used for dances and as a movie theater. After a quick tour of the museum, which traces the rather colorful history of the island from its earliest days, we walked out onto a point near the casino, and Patricia filled me in on this little-known but very interesting part of Catalina's past that took place up in the air.
Now, you came over today on a boat that took you about an hour. Back in the 1890s, the boat would have taken 3.5 hours, and there probably would have been just one boat a day. You could go back and forth as many times as you want to nowadays, and you could take a helicopter for 15 minutes. But in those days, your people were cut off once they got to Catalina Island. And in the wintertime, the little population of the town, which was only about 7 years old, they didn't worry that much about communicating with the mainland. But the summer visitors were fairly affluent people who had affairs on the mainland, and they really didn't like to be quite that cut off. So when the Zahn brothers became interested in training pigeons and thought of the idea of having a pigeon mail service from Avalon to the mainland, the Banning brothers, who owned the island at the time, were quite excited about it and did everything they could to facilitate it.
Pigeon mail.
Pigeon mail.
Now, this was for people who had important business back and forth on the mainland.
Yes. Well, it could have been important business, or it could have been said, I just caught a large fish, or don't forget to bring your overcoat because it's getting cold here in the evening. I mean, there are all kinds of important messages.
Messages that couldn't wait for that one ship that took mail back and forth every day.
There were some more serious messages sent. I think that if there was an emergency and they needed a doctor on the island, or someone, I think one famous case is when the local hotel didn't get its grocery order, and all of the people in town would have gone hungry if they hadn't been able to send over a special boat with the grocery order.
Now, where did this take place? It was right over there, wasn't it? You had shown me a picture of this wonderful old, what was the name of the hotel?
It was the Hotel Metropole. It had been built in 1887 and expanded over the years, so it had several wings. It was quite a gracious hotel. It was a mecca for sport fishermen and well-to-do people who came from the east to visit California.
And how did this pigeon mail work?
The Zahn brothers, who are referred to in the literature as boys, but they were 20 and 24, and I think that's pretty mature. started training the pigeons in their loft in Bunker Hill in Los Angeles, and they would take them, apparently on their bicycle, he would take his pigeon a couple of miles away and release the pigeons. The pigeons would fly back to their home. They were homing pigeons, racing homing pigeons. And so the pigeon got the idea of that's the way to go. Then they take him a little bit further and he'd learn more of the route. And they got to the ocean, and then on the Banning steamers, they'd take them out 5 miles and release them in 10 miles, and eventually got all the way over here to the island. And they had a loft at the Hotel Metropole, and they could release the pigeon with the news. Now the Los Angeles Times had a reporter stationed here to take advantage of this exciting opportunity, and he would write all of the social news of who was here at the Hotel Med.
Oh, and send it back for the newspaper.
He would send it back for the newspaper. And if private individuals wanted to get a special rate, they could send their message back at the same time the newspaper messages went, and they'd get a cut rate. Otherwise, they'd have to pay more.
How much did it cost to send a message back?
I think you could do it for 50 cents if you went with the news mail, and it was like $1 or $1.25, depending on, you know, the weight, the size.
And this lasted how long?
It lasted from 1894 to 1897.
Did the mail always get through?
There were a couple of occasions when it didn't. Once, the pigeons wouldn't fly. They went up and looked over to Los Angeles and decided to come back. And it took a while, because the pigeons didn't fly. It took a while for the news to get here that there was some kind of a strange electrical storm in Los Angeles, and the pigeons weren't dumb enough to fly into that. A couple of other times, a pigeon would straggle in, just bedraggled with buckshot, you know, and it had gotten almost blown away. But that it was remarkable. I think there were just a handful of times when the mail didn't get through. But to ensure that the mail got through, they would repeat it. They would send more than one pigeon.
With the same message?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Just to make sure. I mean, the Zahn brothers apparently were very efficient young businessmen. They kept track of when the bird left, when it arrived, and how long it took. Do
you think they made any money off this thing?
It was supposed to have been successful. The reason they stopped seemed to be that their interest waned. It didn't seem, they weren't the sort of people who had to worry about making a living, but they sounded like the kind of people who felt that that was appropriate, you know, that it should pay for itself. So I don't have any...
I just saw a bird fly by. I thought for a minute it was a pigeon, but it's just a gull.
Another seagull, yes.
Well, it was a gull. But there were some honest-to-goodness racing pigeons on Catalina Island that day, brought there from the mainland for a very special pigeon historical reenactment. Now, Gordon is an expert on racing pigeons. He's been working with racing pigeons for over 60 years now. You were in the Pigeon Corps during World War II, is that right?
That's exactly right.
So you know everything there is to know about racing pigeons.
I know most of it.
And we have brought some actual, honest-to-goodness racing pigeons over here to the island today to kind of recreate what happened here 100 years ago.
Exactly right.
Now, how did you have to train the pigeons in a special way to get them to fly from Catalina back over 26 miles to the mainland?
These pigeons are highly developed. They really don't need any training, but I did have them over here once just to see how they acted. But these birds will do 300, 400, 500 miles in a day.
Really?
Yeah.
So it makes no difference that they're flying over the ocean?
It makes no difference, only they wait a while before they want to take off.
What do you mean by that?
Well, they'll hesitate for a moment before they'll get their direction over water. They don't like to fly over water, but sometimes they have to.
Now, how do they know where to go when you let them out of the cage?
There's been lots of studies done on that, and no one understands it yet. The latest information comes from a study made in Italy, but they're not conclusive, and they just don't know.
So nobody really knows.
Nobody really knows
How racing pigeons
find their way home, especially from distances of 1,000 miles, 600 miles, 700 miles. They don't know.
Now, is this going to be an easy flight for them?
It's going to be a very easy flight, and that's why it was used in the old days for messages, to carry messages from here to the mainland.
How long will it take to get back?
I feel that these birds should make it in 20 minutes or even less.
Wow. Now, I must explain what we've done. We've got some pigeons here. We're going to let go now to see them leave. Then we're going to get on the ferry boat and go back to the mainland. And when we get there, we're going to call Gordon back here on the island, and he's going to release, or your assistant is going to release some more of the birds, and we're going to watch them come in at your house.
Right.
So it's kind of complicated, but it's going to work. And in order for it to work, we wrote out a message, folded it up, and put it inside the little message capsule, which Gordon then attached to the pigeon's leg. And then it was time for liftoff. Ha! There she goes. Wait a minute, she's going back.
Oh no, she's just coming around.
Had you ever seen anything like this before?
I'm excited. I wish I could be on the other side.
Well, now we're going to go over on the other side and call back.
Wonderful.
And they're going to let the rest of them go, and we're going to watch the next batch come in.
Come in, that's right.
Wonderful.
So if actually you could send a message to us with the next batch that's coming over.
Okay.
And we'll be able to communicate.
All right, I'll send you a message. I think that's wonderful.
This has been great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now we've got to get back on the ferry.
Yes, that's right.
And go back across to get the shot of the birds, the second batch of birds coming in.
Right.
All right, here we go.
Here we go.
We're back to the mainland. So after a quick trip back, we ended up on the mainland in San Pedro, in Gordon's backyard, waiting for the second batch of pigeons to arrive. Whoa, here they come. Okay, here's our message from Patricia. To Huell, thank you for keeping the memory of our Catalina Island Pigeon Messenger Service alive. Yours truly, Otto, Oswald, and Lorenzo Zahn. The original guys who started this back in 1893-94.
Right, exactly.
So really, thank you, Patricia, for sending the little historical note.
Thank you.
This really wasn't such a crazy idea, was it?
At that time, I think it was a smart idea, and I think it could even work today.
Do you think it would work today?
Certainly it would work today.
Because there's something very nice about a bird coming in like this, and you kind of undo the little capsule and read the little personal message. It's a very special way to get the mail. I don't know how practical it is.
That's exactly right. It's practical. I mean, you can't lose a bird.
Yeah.
So we can't miss a message.
And here's the hero right here.
Here's one of them right here.
Neither snow nor sleet nor hail can stop this bird from delivering the mail.
Right.
Historians mention the vital role that American glider pilots played in World War II. Their mission? To fly American CG-4A and British Horsa gliders and deliver troops, weapons, and supplies behind enemy lines, many times in the dead of night. On silent wings, they crash-landed into small fields, often flooded, mined, or planted with large poles by German troops. Enemy fire greeted them on the ground, and their casualties were high. Other aviators referred to them as suicide pilots, and many said that the G on their glider wings stood for guts.
No doubt about it, gliders played a major role in World War II, and the glider pilots were a special breed. And California played a major role in the training of those pilots. Our next destination, the Marine Corps Air Ground Combat Center, located in 29 Palms. Now these days, the base is home to over 10,000 Marines. But back in the early 1940s, this base was known as Condor Field and was operated by the U.S. Army Air Corps. Now this was one of the first major training areas for glider pilots, who eventually saw combat all over the world, especially in the European theater. Condor Field was a busy place, the sky over the high desert filled with gliders. And on this particular morning at the Marine base, I hooked up with two of those original glider pilots from 1942, guys who had gone through their training here. And along with a representative from the Marine Public Affairs Office, we revisited what was left of the original airfield. Now we're at the old barracks here.
Yeah, this is one of the old barracks. This is part of them. We had the four beds to a room and a shower, and oh, it was great. If you came in here from a regular Army barracks where you had just the two-story wood jobs, why, this was like a country club for a while.
Now, they stretch pretty far down there. How many of you were staying in these barracks?
Well, there was a heck of a...
150 in one particular class. What? There's 150 in some classes, depending on the number that came into the class. But that was the number in my class, 40E, or 42E, excuse me.
Now, it's kind of hot out here today.
Yeah, it's hot there too.
You didn't have any air conditioning, did you?
No, sir. No, sir. No, sir.
Well, how did you keep cool?
We didn't. But at night, after the old axiom out here was wear your summer flying suit in the daytime but have a parka at night. As soon as the sun goes down, because as soon as the sun goes down it was cold.
That's the desert.
Yeah, that's the desert.
Now, do you think that the people using it today have any idea what it was originally built for and used for?
I would venture to guess that 99% of them have no idea.
Yeah.
Have no idea. They just know that these are about the oldest buildings on the combat center right now, but I don't think any of them have a clue.
Yeah, you know, I think they need to put up a plaque, don't you?
I think so too. I'd like to see one out here because this is history right in here. This was built after January of '42 because when the Army Air Force decided to use this as a training base for gliders, they just started to build these in a big fat hurry. And they built them in, I don't know, a very short period of time because they weren't there in January, as I understand it. But by the time A got here in April, this whole complex was here.
Well, you know what? They may have built them fast, but they're still standing, aren't they?
They sure are. And we had a swimming pool out there, too.
Boy, that's what we need today.
Yeah, you ain't kidding.
Well, here we are out on what I guess we think used to be the old glider field.
Well, it looks like this could possibly be part of the old dry lake runway, yes. But it's been a long time. I couldn't guarantee it.
It ran around at an angle here. I remember there's an old farm fence. It reminds you of an old farm ranch land. And at night it was just as cold could be. And one of my class was here. And the moon was full. It was beautiful. So you didn't mind. You didn't dare fall asleep on tow.
Now, when you all were out here, there was nothing else out here, was there?
Well, a lot of sidewinders. It was just us and the sidewinders, I think. There were very few people living out here at that time. Most of them were, there were prospectors out here and people that were living out here for their health. But most everything out where the base was just wide open, just like it is now.
What did you think when was it the Army Air Corps that
Army?
Army?
Yes,
what did you think when the Army sent you to a place called 29 Palms?
Didn't have any idea what it was like until we got here, and then we didn't know it was really desert. We didn't know anything about California much. We knew part of it, but we didn't know that section was so dry and so cold both.
Yeah, what did you think when you turned that corner and saw this?
I like to flipped. I was sent here from Shaw Field, South Carolina. Shaw Field. and my order said 29 Palms, California, so I visioned beaches and palm trees and living the life of Riley.
Marines are still picturing that, aren't they, when they...
Right. We got the beach, we just don't have the water with it.
Well, it's one thing to talk about gliders. It's another to see them in action. So next, we left the Marine base and headed a few miles out of town for the 29 Palms Airport, where some members of the Vintage Sailplane Association had brought in some restored gliders from the early 1940s. Gliders exactly like the ones those early pilots had trained in. In fact, a number of those pilots were at the airport. It was kind of like a little mini reunion. And for them, it was like stepping back in time. Now, this is pretty exciting stuff. You're getting ready to go up into a plane that I know looks very familiar.
Yeah, it sure does. It sure looks like the ones we used to have out here. And it's probably one of them.
Well, this is an original from the 1940s, right?
This is an original TG-2 from World War II, built in February 1942.
Wow. Now, do you think the ride is going to be just about like it was when you were flying in 1942? Or do you think it's going to be bumpier?
No, it'll be just as beautiful as ever. Sweet, that's great flying.
Now, are you a little excited about this?
I love it. Yeah, I'm eager to go.
So this is that's the stick. That's what makes the whole thing work.
There's the rudders up here.
This is the stick for the elevators for up and down, the ailerons for roll right and left, and you got rudder pedals for the rudder.
And there's the rudders up here.
Uh-huh.
And the instrument panels was, this is what they were supposed to look like when they're delivered, but you see the World War II pictures, they were pretty much full of blank holes, so they didn't have too many of the instruments back in 1942 when they were working out here with them.
So he's hooked on there. Now you look like a man who's ready to go up.
I am. Eager to go.
Are you excited?
Certainly.
And what are you going to do back here in the back?
Well, I'm just going to watch them drive the bus for a while and see what happens.
All right, well, you're going to put the canopy down, or are you going to fly with it open?
No, I think we'll put it down now.
All right, well, have fun.
Oh, yeah. Come off the side here.
Sir?
I'll give them a signal with the sweeping hand motion to tell them to take up the slack. You want the wing up?
So,
hold the wing up.
Hold the canopy down.
Look, there's the plane out there. That's the
Canopy shut.
Okay, we got to get this.
There's the tow plane. And there they go.
And they're off the ground.
They're off the ground.
They're off the ground, and he has to stay low, give the tow plane time to get off the ground. Tow plane goes up, he starts going up.
Oh, that is beautiful.
And they're probably going about 55, 60 miles an hour.
That is beautiful. Now, how long has it been since you've been up in a glider?
50 years, yes, sir. 50 years.
50? You haven't been up since the 40s?
That's right, 1942, December of that year.
Well, what do you think this is going to be like? Is it going to be a total flashback for you of 50 years?
It may be a total recall, and it may be something that I'll have to learn not to stall.
No, I think it's all going to come back, don't you?
I think the feeling will be there again in the air. Quiet, you know, relaxing, very substantial flight.
Yeah, and you know what? You don't have to worry about an officer down here judging what you're doing either.
That's right. No check pilot today.
Yeah, just have fun.
That's right.
And you've got, look, the man's got his camera.
Oh, I'm ready.
You're going to be taking some aerials, right?
I'd like to, yes. I haven't had that privilege before.
Well, have fun. Good luck.
Thank you.
Boy, it's been 50 years.
All glider pilots were volunteers. They didn't say to you, you're going to be a glider pilot. We were all supposedly volunteers.
Yeah, I've heard that before.
The way was greased for us to come that way. A lot of us were ex-power pilots. In those days, you had to complete your power school courses in so many hours, and if you were still on the borderline at the end, they either gave you a choice of going to the infantry or becoming a glider pilot, one or the other. And most of us wanted to fly, and so we took the glider. And usually they only had a few openings left for the different classes. So
Was it a lot of fun out here?
it was hot, and there was no chorus girls at night or anything like that. I was 19 years old at the time, and we're a long way from L.A. I went into L.A. once while I was here.
Now, looking at these old gliders now, bring back a lot of old memories?
I flew in one identical to this that the gentleman you talked to before, Doug, had rebuilt and it was identically the same glider that I flew in practice and training in 1942.
50 years ago.
50 years ago. It made me, just brought tears to my eyes.
Well, you probably didn't think you were ever going to be able to see an old plane like that again or have this experience again.
Well, we were told that he was bringing it to this reunion that we were having here, and I said, when I see it, I'll believe it. And he brought it, and we went for a ride, and it was just wonderful. It just made you feel like life was worth living.
Yeah. Is it a lot of fun up there gliding?
There's no way you can describe it. There's just no way you can describe it. It's like comparing a sailboat to a powerboat. You just hiss along in the air, and you look around, and you feel a little like God must feel when he sits up there and looks down upon us. It's just beautiful. I don't mean to wax poetic here, but there's just no description of it.
Before we left 29 Palms, cameraman Luis Fuerte and I were given the opportunity to go up in the old restored gliders. Now, it was the first time either one of us had ever been in a glider, and I must admit, taking off, the adrenaline was flowing. But once airborne, silently gliding over the vast Mojave Desert, it quickly became one of those wonderful experiences I'll never forget.
California, here I come, right back where I started from, where bowers of flowers bloom in the sun. Each morning at dawning, birdies sing and everything. A sun-kissed mist says, don't be late. That's why I can hardly wait. Open up that golden gate, California, here I come.
Well, hello everybody, I'm Huell Hauser, and I sure hope you enjoyed this adventure. If you'd like to see it again or share it with your family or friends, all you have to do is call 1-800-266-5727, and we'll be glad to send it to you right away.